I stand out here in the wonders of the unknown at Hadley, I try to realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature. Man must explore. And this is exploration at its greatest.
They work here, there, anywhere. From devices they hold through apps in the cloud. Because that's where your data now lives. And where threats you face now enter. But McAfee is on your side to protect enterprise data with one-click policy. To stop threats here, there, anywhere. McAfee. It's about time.
All this time, spinning round and round, made the same mistakes that we've always found. Surely now, we could move along, make a better world. No, it can't be wrong. Let's come together right now. Oh yeah, in sweet harmony, let's come together. Right now, oh yeah, in sweet harmony, let's come together. Right now, oh yeah, in sweet harmony, let's come together. Right now, oh yeah.
We're still in Hungary. We move from Budapest to Taxony, and welcome Tamas Barna. Welcome to our fleeting, unfortunately, because we can't be with you for hours on end, but a great presentation in a minute, I'm sure. Welcome, Tamas.
Hey, good afternoon, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We hear you perfectly well. Obviously, you can hear me because you wouldn't have. Also in the studio, Matits, it's great to welcome Tamas again. He's a big friend.
Of course, Tamas is my personal friend, and I really love to see him on the stage again because he's always rocking it. And overall, for the last 2 days, this conference is amazing, and it's the first time that I had time to watch all the conference.
Yeah.
Our vendors, I can say, they are amazing. A lot of nice presentations, good demonstration of top-in-the-class products, but maybe I only see one problem here, that the big enterprises have a lack of IT security professionals, but they need simplified infrastructure. So McAfee did here really a lovely, good job. They combined all the solutions into the one single Envision platform. So Tamas will for sure tell us more about it.
I'm sure you will,
I'm
Tamas.
really looking forward to it.
There's a nice lead in for you. Well listening.
Absolutely. Cannot be better. Thanks, Matic. Thanks, Chris. I'm very pleased to be here. Let me share my screen, guys, and just let me know if you can see my screen, okay?
Yep. Certainly can.
Right. So, hey, good afternoon and welcome from my side. Hope you are all doing great, safe and healthy. That's the most important thing. And it's great that because of the cloud, the power of the cloud, we can all together here, although virtually. So, you know, guys, my motto is always like on the Risk conference, I'm one of the last presenters. So I'm always keep saying, save the best for the last. I'm not promising that I'm going to do the best presentation here. I think there is no best presentation. Everyone is doing a great efforts here, but certainly something exciting, as Martin said. And this is something around, you know, our industry is full of different acronyms. I want to introduce another one called CNAP, what we formed together with Gartner. This is a cloud native application protection platform a new lightweight architecture embedded into Envision Cloud. We announced basically 3 weeks ago at our very own annual security conference called McAfee Empower. So I think this is a very right moment to talk about this because, if I look into the Corona epidemic, empower the cloud for a home office, how easy you can take at least these challenges, part of all these, bad things. So certainly is this something here which, want to be really aligned with the speed of the cloud, the native part of the cloud, and the lightweight of the cloud. So let me talk about this in some great details in the next 30 minutes or so, right? So the first and foremost, I really want to start to introduce you 4 quotes from Gartner, because we all know Gartner. Gartner is a very influential company for both, for us as a vendors and for you as a customers as well. Everyone is listening what they're saying. And to be honest, when we came up with the CNAP, we also worked very close to Gartner, and remembering what and how they want to see this, So one of the statements I want to share with you is certainly around, that there's a hybrid nature of the cloud while everyone is taking the cloud transformation journey. And part of this, there are strong drivers that everyone move to be cloud native with applications and everything what is considered in resources in the cloud, whether this is workload related, container, serverless technology where you literally own, single piece of code, or more application driven, data driven, database driven. Everybody needs to address these unique and dynamic requirements what we see as part of this cloud transformation. So it cannot be a better time, right? And this is from the threat perspective, because there are new threat vectors, like there is new attack landscape being introduced, east-west traffic, lateral movements, and similar things. And it's not surprise us that many of these things basically coming because of there is a lot of misconfigurations, there is a lot of mismanagement, configuration drifts, which will open the risk and, the attack surface against these new type of attacks. And everyone here should seriously think about posture management, which is all about auditing misconfigurations, the configuration of our cloud environments, regardless what resource we talk about. And we need to identify those risks proactively and obviously remedy them to close this cycle here. Another one which initiated basically how CNAP was born is a very valid statement from Gartner. And what they are saying is that there is an ultimate synergy between workload protection and posture management capabilities. And this ultimately create a new kind of category, something called CNAP, again, pronounced as CNAP, please, Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. And this converge is coming, just to give you a very simple understanding, workloads, computer resources, virtual machines, containers now becoming very identical. Containers are just the next workloads, right? And posture management, again, something very, very important and sensitive, not just because Gartner is saying so, but also looking into this, I see this as 9 out of the 10 customers really want to go part of the cloud transformation, moving that resources in the cloud, but they want to see, what kind of, challenges, misconfigurations this have. They want to run a basic health assessment to understand what are the blind spots and how to mitigate that blind spots. And once they come to that, also compared to compliance regulations, they want to have a minimum must-have security capabilities. So we need to think about it and we need to go with that. And the last one is this, because in the cloud, everything is a shared responsibility, but the security in the cloud will be as good as much as the responsibility is properly shared between the different parties. And I don't want to hide that this is a major part and role for the customers to pay attention for the security, because whatever model we look into that, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, function as a service, container as a service, serverless, security as a service, they all have responsibility to the customers. And that's another big, prediction from Gartner, that in the next 5 years or so, almost in 100%, all of these failures will be a little bit also because of the customer fails, and they need to pay attention for that. So basically, CNAP was really born for that, to mitigate this gap, this chasm, right? Let me explain you very, very simplified way. Traditional IT does not really exist anymore in the cloud. Traditional IT means that you have a very monolithic, slow-move architectures and cloud and infrastructure environments. And people are and departments are really pending from each other. If there is a software development lifecycle, there's a classic waterfall effect following the process each other. A change is something you want to force, within 9 to 12 months, so nearly a year. People don't necessarily talking to each other. There's approval, flow management, everything, which is really missing here. And there is a lot of siloed infrastructure operation in different silos. If we look at what's happening in the cloud, look at the cloud-first companies. Yeah, cloud-first companies here who went first purely in the cloud. Think about here Salesforce, Uber, Facebook, and many other companies like this. The whole story is driven by applications. Application is driving the way, and they are working in a very loosely coupled microservice architecture. Microservice is splitting in different parts the monolithic architectures, and it's pretty much driven by the application development. And this is something what we call DevOps. And our role here, of course, to bring something like DevSecOps, which is a security in the DevOps pipeline. Because this is driven by the business, and it's a very dynamic thing, a very lightweight in the cloud. The only constant thing is a change there, which is happening every day because the business and the application development drive this, and security operation teams is just following this. So if you look at this, what is that really means. That we need to prioritize this. We need a proper prioritization. Without prioritization, it will not work. What is important for the security? It's a kind of noise versus signal, right? So we need to be able to recognize this. And we need to be scale with this. We need to be able to scale along the speed of the cloud, the scalability, as everyone is saying that they relying on the cloud due to speed, agility, endless amount of resources, and elasticity of the cloud. So this is driven pretty much. And when it comes to resources, again, everything in the cloud today is considered as a resource. So it is important, whether it's, in the runtime, whether it's in an orchestration, whether it's in a workload or container ridge itself, or infrastructure as a code, there is a robust security requirements behind that as well. And we also need to admit that security team is sometimes not even engaged how fast and rapidly development is working here. And we need to follow this properly. And we also need to mitigate this kind of risk and capabilities here. And there is basically no wonder, right? So every critical business is important here, and we need to really move at the speed of the cloud to adopt all of these security capabilities together. And for that, we really need a framework. The old concept when you have heavyweight agent to deploy something in the cloud, in a lightweight cloud environment, and just to protect something which might live for a few minutes like a containers, it does not scale, it does not work. Where to maintain something which is heavyweight versus a lightweight. So if you look at the 5 pillar and elements of the CNAP story, this is very important to understand how we build this. And identity is something which is around discovery of IT resources. We want to identify the blind spots. We want to audit and compare with regulatory compliances, everything what you have assets around your infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, container security environments, and we want to prioritize them. We want to add security capabilities. I'll talk about this in a minute. Many processes today moving from the right to the left, something we call shift left. And our intention here, how to bring security capabilities, less and more security capabilities into DevOps pipeline, how to work with CI/CD, continuous integration and deployment tools. Runtime. So look at when we have workloads, we have containers, something like zero trust. Zero trust means that nothing and nobody is trusted by default, but the verification would be required before they gain access to the internal resources. So how to analyze here the application context, the service context we have in containers and workloads, how to know the good known configurations versus the bad known configurations, how to identify anything suspicious, malicious from the traffic, from the communication between application services running into containers. threat intel is very important. We want to drive a new visibility for people in the SOC when it comes to cloud threats. And that's why our integration with the MITRE ATT and CKey framework, where we can bring the full attack chain from the land, expand, exfiltrate based. And then we can, proactively compare this with the different tactics and techniques what the hackers are using and leveraging on this kind of intelligence. And last but not least, the continuous compliance, which can help us, to review the existing user permissions, revoke user certifications, user access, risky users, risky applications, and meet with these compliance regulations as well. Pretty critical and important. I want to stop at that point, a little bit appetize, what I've said so far, and I also want to, pay your attention for my letter coming into this presentation, which is what else than A. So in the middle of the McAfee name, please remember here for letter A. So once you are okay with that, let's move and talk about these bubbles, which basically represents CNAP under the hood, because these are the three main elements. Workload protection include container posture management, which is the configuration and the misconfigurations and avoid configuration drift, that my environment, my cloud environment, become a source of risk. And of course, application data is one of the key resources we have in the cloud today is application data. So how to do a proper application-based prioritization, how to see the overall compliance based on that risky applications. And that's really matter on the C level. I'm going to talk about this in a second. And this is where we come together with existing great capabilities from our flagship product, or doing this through new innovative acquisitions like we have done last year with a company called Nanosec, where we bring a layer-defined container security capabilities. So these are really great capabilities. And let's look at these capabilities from a bird view eye perspective. So one of the things, again, to discovery of the workloads and applications, what's the message here? I want to bring a complete visibility and control. We move workloads into the cloud apart from data, applications, containers, databases, whatsoever. I want to make sure that I'm aware of that workloads, containers, I can quantify them, I can run a minimum health assessment, and based on that, define the minimum must-have security capabilities, so to speak. Vulnerability assessment, I want to discover, what is vulnerable there, what gives access for the hackers. If you look at the attack chain, land is always when a reconnaissance-based attacks happen. Hackers is trying to gain access to the real estate, listening who's answering on what ports, how we can compromise this real estate, right? Application and monitoring control gives a very strong control, visibility and control, and understanding where the vulnerability is coming from. One main part is applications, which is so tied into a different databases, users, services, and systems. And we want to keep running this. OS hardening is another big challenge, right? It's nothing else than whitelisting. It's based on whitelisting the mission critical processes, executables, binaries, whatever you have in the systems, in containers, workloads. We want to protect, we want to bring an additional layer of security. So this is the major capabilities around the workload protection piece, what we bring into the nature of the cloud. Then now let's look at the posture management piece. This is all about, again, to identification, to discovery of the risky services that I said we might have around our infrastructure as it is. We also want to compare it because compliance is a huge driver. I see that this is not a checkbox exercise anymore. I'm very pleased to see that. We have an era of GDPR and other non-international regulatory compliances, and companies certainly and desperately need to meet with this kind of compliance-driven things. And when I've run an initial health assessment for, it's a great thing to compare, am I at risk, am I at compliance, am I at threat? So this gives us to answer this kind of questions. And then, of course, we have now infrastructure as a code. Infrastructure as a code, which is part of a file, which is embedded into the container, immutable nature of the container, and that's what is happening there. We use CloudFormation templates located in different cloud storages, and people start deploying this, part of the infrastructure as a code, as a complete stack and configuration of their settings. We want to identify here misconfigurations and vulnerabilities verified against non-CVAs and against to, put any violation on risk. And just one single line in a code sometimes can make the difference. So It's a cat and mouse game. Who's going to find it faster? We as an enterprise or the hackers? And we need to identify this kind of things. As I said, integration with CI/CD tools is a very important piece, because we need to identify here, while we're moving DevOps processes from the right to the left, we need to integrate with continuous integration and deployment tools like Jenkins, for instance, which will make the automation and will make the build from the code. But before it's happened, I want to see this from a security perspective. If there is any misconfigured problem or line in the code, like public read-write access to the container orchestration or the container image, which should not be the case. And custom policy and building based on different attributes and IAM roles and different kind of things we can check back against, not just the compliance, but make sure that we meet with that. And finally, or last but not least, the application and the data piece. So think about the following way, and this is also best practices from even providers like AWS, Azure, or Google. We have cloud storages today, S3 buckets, blob storages, Google Drive, where there are a lot of sensitive data. We want to run a scheduled or an on-demand scan to see if the content is suspicious, malicious, as against any malware, or we want to classify that data and run a different classified DLP rules to see if there is anything, against the DLP policy. So how would be the DLP for the cloud is just the next extension based on a good, reliable DLP. And we want to identify this kind of services and data with something malicious, and we want to quarantine, we want to isolate that problem. And at the end of the day, a single pane of glass platform for both cloud storages, computer resources, and applications get together. So this gives, again, together this in a way of the summary. But of course, I want a little bit, express this a little bit more. I want to show you a little bit more. So what is here basically the secret sauce? That's something how we call it. Let's take this way, right? So risk-based prioritization. I'm sure this slide will represent the best I want to say. The idea here that if you don't have a risk-based prioritization for your resources and applications, then you will end up in a situation like you play a whack-a-mole game, for a security versus, it's something what is properly prioritized. And this prioritization, and based on that prioritization, to give me, what is an acceptable level of compliance, what is, a genuine risk assessment, and acceptable level of the risk will help you to drive this with a prioritized approach. And I can tell you, if you talk to the C-level, this is really matter. So at level of the CEO, CISO, CIOs, the board level, the only thing is that, what kind of risk reduction you can give them over the time. And then for that, you need this prioritization approach. Otherwise, you just play this whack-a-mole game for security, which goes really nowhere. So what does that mean? Resource-based prioritization is basically all about to identify your resources around the cloud. And remember, everything is considered here resource, workloads, services, applications, databases, containers, and many others. So how we can identify malicious applications based on different policies. If you have healthcare applications, if you have industrial applications, if you have, business applications, how to identify, how to bring the constant and comprehensive visibility and control around that. And this is how we can easily put this together in a very nice fashion and format to see, what are the risks which being introduced part of these misconfigurations, whether this is security related, whether this is business related, found in applications, services, workers, and that piece. And then I can go, and evaluate the risk score and to see, where is this acceptable level of compliance, which is pretty difficult to measure. And you can also challenge yourself or any companies, am I have the right tools to measure this? And what tools do I need to use to get this done from that perspective? And again, remember what I said. Everything is driven by applications today. Every company is becoming a tech company, a software company. Every single company has more and more in-house software development, which is moving now in the cloud and driving the key things at any organizations. It's much faster from a business perspective, driven by the business owners, and security and other operations and teams is just really following this. So risk prioritization is something what is super important. So how I can resolve this? I can see here that I have VPCs. Part of the VPCs, I can identify workloads and containers where I have issues around config audit, might be a DLP policy, malware, vulnerabilities, and similar. So if we click in, we can see exactly what's the issue in terms of configuration, threats, DLP, anomalies, and which is coming from how we analyze net flows, VPC logs, and CloudTrace to visualize this kind of sophisticated attack landscape like east-west, north-south traffic, and other external intelligence like the MITRE AT&C framework. And then how do we simplify this? How we make it really user-friendly for the security team? Enable multi-factor authentication for that problem using an proper IAM role. Done. I need to take not just a visibility, but also a control. How can I take over the control? One of the options of the control is to deploy an agent to that workload. Done, right? So it's an easy click where you can really get this done and understand, that how to protect a workload or a container by deploying a strong security control. If you look at this from a threat perspective, that's how we want to analyze here. We want to verify serious vulnerabilities, config issues against known CVAs. We want to use CIS-based benchmarks like level 1, level 2 on other regulatory compliances, or we want to rely on, some known attacks and techniques for the full attack chain using the MITRE AT&C framework. This is really done and simple on a very intuitive and an interactive way using this. And again, remember, a whack-a-mole game for the security or a real risk-based prioritization for your applications, workloads, and containers. And at the end of the day, this is what the C-level want to see. This is what the C-level is about after. So this is what they want to see constantly, how this risk reduction will work really, because it's really matter what is the acceptable level of those risks, and they are, and the whole organization is really depending on that. Last but not least, before I finishing, I want to also bring up this shift-left security capabilities for the DevSecOps. Yeah, security as the best practice in the DevOps pipeline. If you look at the software development lifecycle today, this is what is happening. Tasks moving from the right to the left, and we need to identify where we can bring real security capabilities. We have less and more shift-left capability. Less means that before actually we deploy something and we have ready that application change or new application to being introduced, located in a CloudFormation template, we want a proper security audit against vulnerabilities and misconfigurations in that infrastructure as a code template. Or we can go further and apply a full-blown shift left, which is again how we integrate with CI/CD tools before actually automation tools like Jenkins or Bitbucket and similars or GitHub will basically make the build from the code. And how is this really working, right? So if we look at the CloudFormation templates, which is located, we can easily find and put this out. Where is it? In which S3 bucket or Azure Blob Storage? And then we can configure an easy scan for the entire bucket or storage where this is located. I can really schedule it in a proper way. And then I have this inventory. And I will have this in a prioritized way. What is high, medium, and low risk? Only for that specific CloudFormation template. And I can then identify my configuration audit incident and remember the third pillar, which is remediation. So I can go and remediate these capabilities to assign this as a ticket to someone and start remediating this problem, which is verified against the known CVAs or CIS benchmarks or other regulatory compliances. And the full-blown shift left is something what makes you is the most visible here. On the left, we have version control repositories, which is like Bitbucket or GitHub. And we have JSON or YAML file here, which is the infrastructure as a code. On the right, you can see Jenkins, one of the most common and popular CI/CD tool, continuous integration and continuous deployment tool. So what is literally happening here, here's an infrastructure as a code, right? So developers are working then on this. And once they commit with the change, which is, again, remember, the only constant thing is a cloud is the change. And that's happened every day because it's driven by the business and driven by application development. Then they are commit for the change, so they will send the code to Jenkins, and Jenkins will execute the code and make the build. What we can do here with Envision Cloud CI/CD shift left integration is actually an interception engine which will not allow to build the code if there is a security risk. And hope you can see my screen clearly. What's the issue here? The issue is here, guys. We should not have a public read-write access to the container runtime and to the container image, because it's a cat and mouse game. Hackers will find this. You're never going to find it. Containers are the new shiny stars, the fast ever growing part of the cloud in this moment, and the battle is lost. You lost the visibility and the control. Instead of, here's a clear advice, play with the classless interdomain routings, restrict access to and from certain internal subnets, certain internal IPs. One of the things we can spot out. And I tell you, Jenkins and other CI/CD tools never ever going to do that. They're going to check integrity of the code, the syntax and everything in order to be successfully executed. But it never ever going to check anything from a security perspective. And that is important. If you don't have this, and every day and every minute when a challenge and a change is happening with the code, you are, under risk, under security risk, no question about that. So after this speech, I want to leave you with this slide, together, which is puzzling together something where I strongly believe after 20 years with this company called McAfee, that will build something which makes us an undisputed leader position much rather than a follower. And this is the ecosystem. I call it Envision Cloud. Yes, an ecosystem, at least beyond a certain point, is not a product, where we are adding great security capabilities, whether this is more application data, SaaS driven, and that's the left side, UCE, Unified Cloud Edge, which brings together market-leading capabilities like Web Gateway, DLP, and our disputive market leader, Casby, Sky High, an acquisition we have done a few years ago, and now last week was announced again as a disputive leader in Gartner, and adding fresh, new, innovative ideas through browser isolation acquisitions with LightPointSec and similar companies, or the left side, which is infrastructure, where we also, again, and that was my speech here today, put together with workload protection, CSPM, and everything. So whether this is more business-driven or more infrastructure-driven, we are here to help and put this together, everything, one umbrella, in these key capabilities, and everything integrated into one single lightweight ecosystem and environment to be aligned with the constant thing, which is the change in the cloud, the lightweight nature of the cloud, like containers and other environments around the cloud, and really help to have a single pane of glass for manage anything what we have here. That's a real message and the power here. I offer you to visit McAfee.com/CNAPP, where you can find more. Obviously, we have here also real security, the McAfee team behind you to support you with that. And if you want to know more, quick look for this demo. And of course, we can help you further with this. But in this time today, in this last 30 minutes, I really wanted to, give you something fresh, new, innovative. And this is what, why, and obviously how we are doing at McAfee today. So cannot be a better time. And with that said, I'm done. I'm finished. Giving back the word to Chris, and I'm staying online if there is any questions or comment. Chris, back to you.
Tamas, as ever, thank you very much. You're always a very important part of the family, Real, and of course, Risk. So, sorry? Really? Oh, okay, it's okay. He had a little question, I thought, but no, he just wanted to tell you he really understood the bare necessities. So that's really cool. Thank you so much indeed.